Welcome to this new episode of Biz Jet TV, where we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and private jets. My name is Fabrizio, Poli. I'm your aviation advisor. Welcome to the channel. If you haven't been here before, subscribe. Most people watch the channel, don't subscribe, so subscribe right now. Click also on the notification bell, because that will tell you every time we publish a new video. And I also would like to encourage you to get yourself a copy of The Quantum Economy, my new book. It's out now. It's all about business of the future and private jets, and how the private jet plays an important role here. And there's stories in here, a number of entrepreneurs that bought their private jet very, very early on, maybe too early for their CFO said, no, you're crazy, don't do this. But they did anyway, and it's been key to building their business and bringing their business into the quantum economy. Quantum means, growing, 10, 20, 30x instead of that linear growth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As I say, 10 linear steps is 1 to 10. 10 exponential steps brings you to 512. So what do you want to grow, quantum level or not? So get yourself a copy. Click on the link below to get yourself a copy of The Quantum Economy, and also below you'll find the link to my newsletter, which is coming out every week. Lots of information in there too. So let's get into today's episode, where towards the end I'm going to be bringing in Rick Hamilton, who I interviewed a while ago, and he's going to be telling us his take on the whole cybersecurity thing. So keep listening, keep watching until the end, and you'll hear Rick's take on this whole cybersecurity thing. He's a pilot, and he's also a cybersecurity expert and AI expert. So it'd be interesting to hear what he thinks. So what's my take on all this? And this idea for this video came about this week as I was talking to two different clients at the aircraft, one based in the western part of the United States and one in Europe, and they both had the same question. Do I buy an older, larger aircraft with a bit more range, or do I buy a more technologically advanced airplane but smaller with obviously less range? So, and the answer to that question were two different answers to the two, because of when I talked to people, it was their, the priorities that were important for them. And technology for the guy in Europe was really, really important. He really wants the latest and greatest in tech because he believes in technology. The other guy wanted more space and more range. That was more his thing. Which is why I always tell people, when people come on here and they think they can get all their information from the internet, but when you're buying a private jet or leasing one or whatever, or chartering one, you really should be taking advice of an expert, an aviation advisor. So I encourage you, if you want to have a chat with me, just ping me an email and we'll schedule in for a call and help to craft a customized plan for you. And that's really, really important. So what do I think about this whole technology thing? Now, it's very interesting to see some of the technology that's being put on these new aircraft. And a lot of these new aircraft have been going tech. And people say, oh, what's wrong with the technology? Why is this brand new airplane that I just bought keep breaking down? Well, actually, it's the pilots. And I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine was one of the first qualified pilots on the Falcon 7X. And the management company that was managing the aircraft for him had two of these 7Xs. And Giorgio is this friend of mine. His airplane never broke down. Well, the other one was always breaking down every 5 minutes. So they said, Giorgio, can you come and fly this other airplane for a couple of days and tell me what's wrong with it? So off he went. And he went flying, and he came back and he said, well, actually, there's nothing wrong with the airplane, but there's everything wrong with the pilots. Pilots? What's wrong with the pilots? They did the same course you did. Yeah, I know they did the same course, but they're not flying the airplane the way it was designed. This is a flying computer. So you almost have to change your mindset as a pilot. Pilots are very much, let's disengage the autopilot, let's fly manually, and let's do this and that, and let's vertical speed up and down. And they're not using the automation, they're not using the systems on board in the way it was designed. Now, these modern airplanes with these modern avionics and modern systems, whatever, absolutely fantastic. Some of the things they can do. And the big thing is they took the workload off the pilot. As a lot of Honda jet pilot owners have told me, they said the airplane's so easy to fly that it really requires half a pilot. Because Garmin have done a great job with their avionics. But you need to get your head round the systems and fly the airplane in that certain way. Now, this obviously opens up another thing, because these airplanes are talking to the ground. There's lots of communication going on now between the airplane and the ground. There's this CBDLC, which now allows you on long-range flights. When I used to fly long-range flights on the 737-800, we had HF radio. And so with HF radio, which didn't always work at its best, you're over the Indian Ocean at night and you're talking to Bombay radio, and sometimes they would hear you, sometimes they wouldn't. The signal was coming and going, and you had different frequencies you would try to communicate with them, and you're trying to listen in, and can they hear you, can they understand, and read back, and this, that, the other. So what they invented is they come up with this new system where you basically text message and you get a message back with your clearance. So this two-way communication between air traffic and is happening through text messaging, which is a great way because you can send 10 messages at the same time, and sometimes on the radio when it's very, very busy, you've got to wait for your turn to press the button on the mic to say your bit, to get in, to get your clearance to descend or whatever it is. And so this is great technology, but as the airplane starts communicating with the ground and that there's this two-way system, this can open up the window to potentially be hacked. So let's go in now and have a chat with Rick Hamilton. You'll see the segment I did from the long interview I did with Rick Hamilton about his career and his success as a businessman. So we'll go into this interview now, and I asked Rick a specific question about this cybersecurity and that, and let's see what he has to say. Off we go. Do you think an airplane can be hacked?
Certainly can be hacked. I mean, now if you think about technologies like you were talking about, CPCLD and other ADS-B and other technologies, what we do need to understand is that airplanes are now more connected. They're part of a living, breathing network, and that means they're vulnerable. And if you start to build more advanced capabilities in airplanes, it means people can get their hands on them. So, you remember the buzz when the 737 MAX situation was unfolding around the world. There was strong conspiracy theories and concerns that potentially the airplane had been hacked by terrorists. So had it or had it not, different story, but it's a very distinct possibility. I mean, everything that we do that advances our standard of living also exposes our personal security. Like we have to understand that as people say, yeah, airplanes definitely can be hacked. And I think the cyber security industry from an aviation perspective is way, way behind what it needs to be. Okay. And when I was talking about regulatory, the long pole in the tent on regulatory issues, this is one of them. Like, what do we require in terms of a cybersecurity presence and posture on airplanes as they become more autonomous? And I don't think the industry is thinking about that as much as they should, because we, even in the business world, in the personal world, we think about cybersecurity after something bad happens. We're still slow to take a position of preemptive care until something really bad happens, And so I think the airline industry or the aeronautical industry is way, way, way behind there because they haven't had a need to. Airplanes weren't connected really to anything, really. And now they are. Now you got passengers on board with internet connections that are connected to the airplane. You've got pilot controller connections to the airplane. You certainly now have telemetry going back and forth between the ground. So the airplane, just look at ADS-B, the very simple example. It is now sending and receiving data. And the minute you do that, you become exposed. And I just don't think we're where we need to be from an industry from that perspective. I think
so basically this won't change until someone's airplane's been hacked.
Well, and the aviation industry is fraught with a very good practice. It's a bad practice. We learn as pilots and as aviation professionals most of our lessons from the bad things that happened in the past.
That's what all the CRM courses are about. Analyze the accident.
It's all about accident analysis, and they've made some great strides in safety because we reacted to situations that happened. Cybersecurity has to be a bit of a different posture because the implications are much more profound than just an accident on an airplane, God forbid, with a couple hundred people on board.
Now, Rick makes a valid point, and it's sad, unfortunately, but it is the reality. Changes in aviation happen after accidents have happened. I mean, one of the largest changes that happened in the way pilots talk over the radio, in the phraseology, the standard phraseology that pilots use, happened after the Tenerife accident in the 1970s, where two Boeing 747s collided on the runway in Tenerife, and over 500 people died. So, but you're watching this episode, you've got to the end, great, give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so. So you've got to the end here, and obviously you're thinking about buying a private jet or maybe leasing one. You've obviously made quite a bit of money because, private jets are expensive. Anybody that tells you they're cheap or you can do it cheap or someone can pay for it for you, whatever, that's just a big pipe dream. They're telling you a big fat lie. Private jets are expensive to buy, to run and everything, but if you use it in the right way, it can make you a ton of money. And so you should be thinking about prevention, and this is really important. I've often talked about this on my channel here about, you know, paying pilots a bit more money so you can retain them, so you can attract the right type of people that are good people, that are well trained. They're going to stay with you because they see the loyalty, they see the trust, they see, you know, you're giving them a good remuneration package, you're giving them days off, and all that kind of thing. You're looking after your people. You're going to attract good people. Those people are going to keep you safe instead of going on the cheap. You know, all these things are preventative. I mean, getting your pilots more training than the minimum requirement is preventative. And often enough, the preventative isn't done because you don't see it. It's like a friend of mine has a security company, and the other week, one of his clients said to me, said, "Bob, I don't know why I pay you because nothing ever happens." And he turned around and he said to him, "You pay me so that nothing happens, because I make sure nothing happens." And so we have to really play the preventative game. Now, aviation, well, that doesn't happen, but you as an individual watching this episode can do it as you build the organization around your private jet. You choose the right private jet, you equip the private jet with the right things, you have systems in place to protect you, you have the right pilots on board, you know, you create this whole system around your airplane which keeps you safe, and you play the preventative game, which obviously is going to cost you a bit more money. And obviously, you know, those things aren't necessary. They're not, you know, you don't need those from a legal standpoint to fly, but you need to be investing a bit more money to sort of create that buffer around you so that you are safe, not only physically, but also from a cybersecurity standpoint. That's really important. So if you want to get on a call, ping me an email. Let's have a chat and see what I can do to help you in creating your aviation strategy for your private jet. Get yourself a copy of the Quantum Economy. There's lots of information in here. I do recommend you get yourself a copy and read this before we get on a call. Certainly lots of information in here. There's stories of people that have their own private jet and how they're using it to build their business. It's a very, very valuable business tool. It's innovation, and innovation is another thing that you can't measure before it happens. It's one of those things that can't be quantified until it's actually done and implemented, and then you look back and you say, well, actually, that piece of technology that we put into our company has made us $100 million. That private jet that we bought for $20 million actually brought us a $100 million deal. So it paid for itself. If we hadn't had the jet, we wouldn't have made that money. 100 million plus 20 million to buy the private jet, 3 million maybe to operate it. You still made a massive profit as a result of that. So it's the same with all these things as well. It's preventative, and that's really, really important. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Biz Jet TV. Give us a thumbs up, comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Let's get the conversation going, and also check out this other video we did about our electric private jets coming soon. So if you like this episode, you like this one about electric jets, and then check out the playlist here of private jet people tell their story. You'll hear about more other owners, about why they bought the private jet, what jet they bought, how they use it, what deals they've done as a result of having the private jet. These are the conversations that I've been having. I've been having a lot more conversations. We've got a lot more episodes coming with private jet owners just to share their stories so that hopefully you can get inspired to get into action and join the private jet game, which will allow you to join the quantum economy. So click on the link below to get yourself a copy of the quantum economy, and also to subscribe to my newsletter. And that's all from Fabrizio Poli here on Biz Jet TV. Check out this video on electric jets and the playlist here of the private jet people. And that's all from me here on this episode of Biz Jet TV, and I'll see you on the next one.